Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Let's Talk here on WIN TV. We have an exciting lineup today featuring four incredible individuals who've made significant contributions within their respective fields. Join us as we celebrate achievements, shed light on important social issues, and explore topics that matter. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer and host of Let's Talk. Today, we're going to talk to Mamo Assefa, principal and chairman of the board of directors of Delon Hampton Associates, a prominent company engaged in the engineering and construction industry as they celebrate 50 years. Carla Labat, president of the Washington Real Estate Brokers Association, is with us to talk about a pressing issue that affects many individuals today, and that is affordable housing. Our Black History Month segment features Leigh Mosley. Leigh made history as the first African-American female photographer hired by the Washington Post. And finally, February 3rd was National Missing Persons Day, and we have the privilege of speaking with Monique Smith, the longest living Jane Doe, who's here to shed light on the often overlooked issues of Black and brown missing persons. Before we jump into some stimulating conversations, make sure you've picked up a copy of the most recent edition of the Washington Informer. And as you know, I always like to show our print edition. One day you'll look back at these shows and say, wow, how long did they continue to print those newspapers? And hopefully we can say more than 60 years, because we will be 60 years old this October, the 16th. And we look forward to sharing how we're going to celebrate 60 years of publishing here in the DMV. But we are in the new age as well. So you can pick up or conveniently access the digital edition of the Washington Informer anywhere by visiting WashingtonInformer.com. That's our website. And we urge you to explore our website and become a regular subscriber. You can just, when you go to the website, there's a place where you can say, sign me up. And we want you to sign up and become a part of the Washington Informer family. And guess what? It's free, and you get great information, great invitations to events, all that when you become a part of the family. And again, the cherry on the top, it won't cost you a dime. And by subscribing, you will receive our publication directly in your inbox, along with the daily news updates from our exclusive service, WIN Daily. While you're tuning into the show, join us in spreading the word. So we want you to share the broadcast all across your social media platforms. We ask the guests to do that. And if you're watching, we ask you to do that as well. We're not hard to find. You can follow us on IG, X, formerly known as Twitter, Threads, Nextdoor, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We're everywhere, catering to all your news needs in the DMV. But wait, there's more. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Washington Informer TV. The word is just one word, no spaces. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get those numbers up. People say, how do you all do so much for free? Well, it's the numbers that matter to our advertisers and supporters and sponsors. So if we can show that you all are actually watching, and not only watching, but sharing and joining, that makes a big difference. And that's how we continue you can support us, and how we continue to support the news that we get from our subscribers and our readers and all the folks that are part of the Washington Informer family. So having said that, because we have a packed show, let's now turn to our weekly news broadcast by Curtis Knowles.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. A suspect is in custody Wednesday night after police said he shot and wounded 3 D.C. officers who were attempting to serve an arrest warrant and then holed up inside his home. The standoff lasted around 13 hours and started when police approached the house on Hannah Place in Southeast D.C. around 7:30 a.m. Police said 46-year-old Julius James of Southeast refused to come outside and then shot at officers through the door as they tried to enter his home. The shooting sparked a massive police presence in the area, closing down several nearby streets and forcing some nearby schools into lockdown. James is charged with animal cruelty, and charges related to the shooting and barricading are pending, according to police. A state audit shows at least 8 Maryland school systems didn't use the $12.3 million designated for students in underserved communities. According to the document from the Office of the Inspector General for Education, officials with the Maryland State Department of Education didn't provide training and guidance for local school officials to utilize what are known as concentration of poverty grants. Those grants are to aid students inside buildings designated as community schools, which receive services such as before and after school tutoring, access to mental health professionals, and educational field trips. School systems that were selected in the investigation included Allegheny, Anne Arundel, Baltimore, Dorchester, Montgomery, Somerset, Washington, and Wicomico County. The Bowser administration announced Tuesday a new grant program to support local and minority-owned retail businesses in developing space at the parks at Walter Reed. Known as the Walter Reed Retail Opportunity Grant Program, it will support businesses that activate the retail areas on the parks at Walter Reed campus, support job opportunities, and better improve customer experience. Funds from this grant can be used for design and construction costs, to purchase vital equipment, or to preserve historic spaces while expanding them for retail use. Nina Albert, the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, expressed excitement for the grant program, saying, quote, "The grant is one way for supporting our goal and the comeback plan of increasing the share of minority-owned employer businesses here in D.C."
Thank you, Curtis. So glad to catch up on some of the not always so good news about the DMV, but if you read the Informer, you're going to get a great mix. And that's why we bring you WIN TV and Let's Talk, because there's a lot of positive news taking place in our community. And we're going to start now with our conversation with Mamo Assefa, the principal and chairperson of the board of directors for the Delon Hampton and Associates. Let's watch this quick video first.
Founded in 1973, Delon Hampton Associates is a professional engineering and consulting firm specializing in civil and structural engineering, as well as program and construction management services. As we celebrate 50 years of innovation, partnership, and excellence, we invite you to briefly journey with us as we reflect on half a century of transformative solutions and prepare for the next 50-plus years of engineering excellence to come.
Wow, Mamo, just watching that video makes me proud, makes me so proud to know that your company's hands were a part of building so many places in DC and elsewhere. So welcome to WIN TV.
Thank you, Anissa. Appreciate it. And I feel the same way, even though I'm on this side. I'm so proud of all those before my time and all of them.
Yeah, oh, yeah. So, 50 years in the industry, what's the firm's commitment to diversity and inclusion, and how have you helped shape the landscape for engineering for Black professionals?
Okay. First of all, we're celebrating our 50th year anniversary. Our founder, Dr. Hampton, started the company in 1973. Well, 1973, there were no Black-owned firm our size or our type. Pure consulting. What we do is not construction. We do engineering, consulting, engineering services.
Now, when you say no, Mamo, you mean no in the DMV, none in the DMV, or in the country?
At that time, consulting engineering. There were construction companies, maybe architects, but not civil and structural engineering firms, water, wastewater firms like what we do right now. To this day, there's few of us that have lasted 50 years. I don't think there is none. And that's why this 50th year anniversary for DHA is very important for a Black-owned firm to survive 50 years. Not only survive, Dr. Hampton run it. He was the founder, run it for over 40 years. He was in charge for over 40 years. I assumed this position in 5 years ago, 2018, even though I've worked for Delon Hampton for 24 years out of my 37 years career. I worked for DHA. And there was a reason I joined them, was because it was a Black-owned firm. I finished school in Minnesota. Back there was nobody that kind of looked like me. I worked for a year, and I saw Delon Hampton to work for. And there's a reason. The reason I say that is not only are we celebrating 50th year of existence, but also we're celebrating a transition of a Black-owned firm to the next generation.
Wow.
Which usually doesn't happen in our profession.
Well, the other thing, it rarely happens, period. And then, for particularly, like you said, Black-owned companies to be around 50 years, what do you think was the magic that made that happen? How did the organization survive when so many others didn't?
Yeah, and that goes back to the founder. I mean, usually when a founder starts a company, the DNA of that person is in the company. And Dr. Hampton did not respect boundaries. Let's put it that way. I mean, nobody can tell him you can't do it. And our first project, from what I understand in this area, was for the metro, the WMATA project. And we've done a lot. We're still there, but he went and interviewed for a project that was his first project with about 4 or 5 people in the firm. And he was so qualified. He was a geotechnical engineer. He is a PhD. So he didn't say I can't get it. He went in and he got the project. What I'm saying is, the things that we need to look at from the past is that his ability to say no, nobody can tell me what, there is no boundary. I mean, even though at the time there were no Black engineers, but he participated in that. And going forward, there is nothing we say we cannot do. I mean, the projects that you see right now are large projects.
Let's talk about some of those. Yeah, because we saw some of the images, but tell us some of the large projects that you all are involved with.
Yeah, Verizon Center. So, and that's the thing. Stretching is one of the things that he said. We have to stretch, and we stretched and grew. And so it's the DNA. We are not only that, we attract Black engineers that come out of school, want to work for us, because back then that was the only firm that was around that was all inclusive with equity. And going to another firm, somebody might feel, or a Black engineer might feel, not belonging in that environment. But at DHA, we're a diverse team. Right now, we're everybody in a high position is diverse, predominantly black engineers or Black executives. So
yeah. But Mamo, sometimes, and that's what one of the challenges of DEI, right? People think, because you're Black, you have to, fulfill these positions. But even at your company, you didn't just hire people because they were Black.
No.
Mr. Harris didn't do it because they were just Black, but you had to come with something. What did you come with to make him say, you can be a part of our team? What did he look for in the people that he hired?
Like you said, first is ability to do the work. I mean, and that's number one. You have to be able to do what was required to be done. And that's the only metrics. Wherever you come from, it's not because you're Black or white or Latino or Asian. It's first is that. But the fact that it is open to Black engineers. I've worked previously in other engineering firms, and there is, it's not still level. There is a point of where you say, well, I can't grow any further than X, Y, and Z at the position. Yeah. Here I grew all the way from civil group manager to the president of the company. There was no secret handshake. There was no ceiling. Your ability was what it took me to get to this point. And I want the younger engineers, when they come on board, to feel the same way. Right now in the country, there's about 6% of the practicing civil engineers are Black. And that's not a whole lot.
And I assume that those numbers really have not grown. Is there a reason why they're not growing?
And there is a trend in our profession also to become a conglomerate. Right now, our size is a medium-sized firm. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, bigger firms are buying smaller firms and becoming big. So there is no company our size does not exist almost. I mean, it's there, but it's diminished.
Okay.
And
how would you describe the size of your company? It's not a conglomerate, but what is it?
For a consulting firm, we consider ourselves a mid-sized consulting engineering firm.
Okay.
We like I said, we do only consulting. We don't produce gadgets or anything. We just do design, and we hand it off to the contractors to build. We're designers, and then also we manage projects, project management and program management. We have a significantly large project for FTA. We're managing all their work in the Mid-Atlantic area, program management oversight.
Who is that? You said
FTA, Federal Transit Authority.
Okay, all right. Do you do a lot of transportation work
yes.
in that field? Because, you know, and I think about it all the time. Every time I hear the president or the Congress talking about an infrastructure bill and all the money that's being spent because, you know, the whole country needs to be rebuilt almost. And to be in that space the opportunities have to be amazing, even though, you know, you still have to fight. You have to get your piece of the pie.
Yeah, exactly. But we're doing it all of it, you know, not as much as it's as equal as I want it to be, but we're getting some of it. But there is a whole lot to be done. I mean, like you mentioned, the system of our infrastructure, our politics also doesn't help globally, not just minority firm globally. The way infrastructure money is allocated is not great because it's always politics. One governor comes and then kills the other project, and then it stays for a long time before it gets constructed. Pointing an example is like, you know, I don't know if you know the ICC, the Route 200 in Maryland. It took about 40 years to be built.
Yeah.
40 years. And the most developed country in the world right now doesn't have a high-speed rail. China has tons of them already. We don't have a high-speed rail system in this country, and everybody else has it. And that's because infrastructure is seen as a political tool for somebody to say, well, I got to this project, rather than being a similar to defense. It should be something that should be allocated, funds should be allocated every year, despite a government changing or elections happen and all that. It should be consistent, just like defending this country, because without infrastructure, our livelihood doesn't exist. I mean,
well, we see that, people see that every day when they're stuck on these roads and they can't get, you know, it takes them longer and longer to get to work. And, you know, I mean, there's not really reliable options to travel, you know, besides car. So it's interesting. And you mentioned global. I'm wondering, does the firm do any work outside of the country?
No, we have not done any. Yeah.
Okay.
We have an Atlanta office in Maryland. We have Prince George County.
Okay.
We had a California office at one time. We don't have it anymore, but it's in the United States, and we've done tons of work.
Well, how do you plan to celebrate your 50th anniversary? What's the big plan?
We already had our event the first day of February in a venue that is owned by the first woman at Salamander, black woman.
Sheila Johnson, exactly. Yeah.
And we had it there just because we want to make a point. A Black-owned firm has reached 50 years, and not only that, it has transitioned to the next generation. It's going to intend to stay for another 50 years.
Wonderful.
So we did a celebration, a great one, and a lot of people came. But we're going to continue to the next 50 years. What I want to mention a couple of things. What we have done also. I mentioned there were only 6% of civil engineers African Americans. DHA in its life has gave livelihood to about 1,800 employees, and that's a lot of people that we have touched, and a lot of them either became their own owners of a firm at somewhere else, or came back to us, worked again. So that's a big thing, and in addition to that, because of that lack of civil engineers and our, some of the owners participating, we have established a scholarship fund for African American students that pursue STEM in an accredited college, and it's going to start this year, we need that because I have attended career fairs at colleges, and different colleges have different, like Majority College, few African Americans are there. They come and talk to us, and they're very happy to see a Black-owned firm participating in a career fair. And just that fact, and the fact that there is a firm that they can go in and apply and equitably get a job, and we actually recruit Black engineers. We have Harvard grads, Morgan State grads. That's a big deal by itself. That's what I want in Foster, is to be able to have a firm that is available to them, and they can always, just like it was for me. Like I said, in 1987 is when I graduated from Minnesota, University of Minnesota, and I knew about Delon Hampton back then, and I sought to work there because I know I've worked on the other side. So this scholarship fund is going to be great for a lot of people, and I just want to let people know that.
Now, how can people find out information about the scholarship fund?
We're going to roll it out. It's going to be on our website,
and
the details are going to be on our website.
And the website, I don't know if we've got that posted now.
DelonHampton.com.
Yeah. Right. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well,
I want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to just say, I really appreciate you being with us, sharing this, historic and very significant occasion with us, in a field where there are not enough of us, but at least there's a place where people can go, and contribute and be a part of the rebuilding of America. So, Mamo, your story itself is great, and glad you could spend this time with us.
Thank you, Denise. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity, and kudos on your 60-year also. But I'm going to mention that that's an achievement by itself, right there.
Yeah, all I can say is,
yeah.
I know you understand.
Yep.
All right,
keep it going. I know.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much for being with us. Let us know about any, as new projects come along. We certainly want to continue to celebrate 51 and 52, and all the great work you all are doing.
Appreciate it, Denise. Thank you.
All righty. Have a good one. Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Some people may ask, this is Black History Month. I mean, this is important to celebrate. And the theme this month, for those who don't know, is Blacks in the arts. For me, people who are in the engineering field, when you can design, big projects, and then someone can build big projects based upon your design, that is an art. It's a science and it's an art. And I'm so glad that Mamo was with us to really talk about how that happens. Now, Carla Labat, who's joining us now, who's a real estate broker here in the DMV, we're going to kind of figure out how to call this an art as well, because selling houses, especially right now, you're the president of the Washington Real Estate Brokers Association. I mean, you having to paint some pretty pictures right now to get folks to spend that money and, go ahead and buy homes in some challenging times. Carla, welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you so much, Denise, for having me. I appreciate this.
Sure. So how did you get into this business? I know we've talked before, but I love stories.
So my first career, I was in Manhattan and Philadelphia in the fashion industry. And that went through a lot of changes during the time. So I said, let me come back to the Washington, D.C. area, which is where my family was living at the time. And when I arrived, I really didn't have a place to stay because I was moving in from Philly. So I stayed with my dad for a little while, and my best friend was an agent. And she said, and she sold me a house. And she said, you really ought to think about becoming an agent because you have the personality, temperament for it. And she knows how much I love architecture. And honestly, the transition from the fashion industry to real estate really wasn't that far at all.
Interesting.
So that worked out really good.
And so, I'm not trying to throw out dates, but I am. How long have you been in the real estate industry?
It'll be 21 years this year.
Okay.
And most recently, my current position, I'm the managing broker for Long and Foster, the Georgetown office. And I've entered my 4th year as managing broker.
Wow.
So I still sell real estate, but I also oversee an office with over 70 agents in it. And I really love it. It's great fun. And we are assisting people in home ownership, which is the American dream, of course.
So, I'm wondering, and I always want to try to stay on the high road, but sometimes we can't. I mean, what is really challenging right now as it relates to what you all do, what your real estate agents are doing in trying to get people into homes? Is it, is the market changed? Is there something going on that folks need to know about in order to be better prepared to purchase a home that's different than it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago?
Different than it was just a few years ago. Absolutely. This past year definitely turned on a dime when the interest rates increased. So we went from, and we were all very spoiled, we went from the 3s and the 4s to all of a sudden we were at 7. Now, when I bought my first house back in the day, 7, that's what it was. We certainly never dreamed of 3. But once, it's hard to put, what do they say, the horse back into the barn after you've let them out. So first-time home buyers, it's definitely challenging. A lot of government funding has dried up already. There are a number of national organizations that do offer assistance for first-time home buyers. NACA, you may be familiar with them, the Neighborhood Assistance. Now I'm forgetting what the acronym means, but they are very much known as NACA. They have funding right now, and there are a number of lenders that, because of the interest rates, and by the way, they are coming down. We're now in the mid-6s now, which are a little bit more palatable. And we believe that they're probably going to hang around in the 6s for a while. But lenders are offering finance assistance to those who qualify. There are some that are driven by salary, and then some qualify by area. And so there's community lending programs that are available by a number of lenders. So all of this is very important, needless to say, to help people get into a industry that right now is very expensive, especially in Washington, D.C.
Which is why I'm glad you decided to join us, because we want to talk a little bit more about this concept. I call it a concept. I don't know if it's even really real, called affordable housing. Because in DC, we know that even over here in Ward 8, where we are, there are $1 million homes being sold in Anacostia and other parts of the community, which, nobody blames folks for getting the most of what they can get for the property that they're selling. But now Prince George's County, as you go further, people are going further out to find what they believe are affordable homes. What is your stance, or the association's stance, on affordable housing?
Well, the Washington Real Estate Brokers Association is the local arm of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, or NAREB, which is one of the oldest African-American professional organizations in the country. This is what we do. We fight for affordable housing. We work with local politicians to find out what they've allocated for affordable housing. Of course, affordable housing, the price of affordable housing has gone up.
Right.
The average home in Washington, D.C. is $600,000. That's a lot of money for period, the end. I'm not going to say for most people, it is a lot of money without question, especially from where we came from. So yes, are there opportunities, especially in 7 and 8? There are some, but those are even being blocked by some of the regulations that are out there. There are condos that are available, but there are other circumstances preventing qualified people to purchase these condos. One being delinquency rates, meaning the people who live there already are not paying their share of the condo fee. This makes it difficult, and now this building, or complex rather, is at a higher risk when it comes to lending. So lenders may say, nope, the rate is too high, we're not going to lend.
Wow.
So now you have to pay cash.
Wow.
Not a lot
Yes.
of people have 100, 200 plus in cash money to buy. Investors do, but in order for us to get, homeowners into housing, this is one of the things that we're fighting for. How can we somehow supplement? I mean, I don't have the answer yet, but these are one of our charges. How are we going to get these people who can afford, that has the ability to spend 150, 175, 200, because there are condos available in those price ranges, but they just can't get in because of these regulations that are put in place.
Wow. I mean, I remember buying my first condo. My mother helped me to get it. I didn't know how I was going to be able to pay that mortgage. It was $32,000.
So yes, things have changed.
They have really changed. And so, with these barriers, I know we've had conversations with the Secretary Fudge over at HUD, and this whole mission, that the federal government has to make sure home ownership is more affordable and accessible. But are you seeing it, or is it just lip service?
I believe they're working on it. Absolutely.
Okay.
It is slow, though. It is definitely slow. So our charge is to prepare people, prepare them to be placed in these properties that hopefully will be available soon. First things first, credit. Good credit, regardless, is necessary to purchase a home, without question. I don't care what price range. I have helped people at all ranges up to $1 million, and people still don't have their credit in place. That's definitely step one. Step two is to meet with a financial provider to find out what your buying power is, how much home you could comfortably afford. Once you get those two together, then your next step is to meet with one of our agents. The Washington Real Estate Brokers Association, while we are members of NAR, the National Association of Realtors, because when it was NAREB was founded, we couldn't be a member of NAR because folks were not allowed. So we have adopted, instead of realtors, we are realtists. So there are over 60 chapters throughout the United States that belong to NAREB, and the agents and realtists that belong are available to help, and we specialize in working in the minority communities. So that's step number 3, is to reach out to us and see how we could help you.
Makes sense. I personal stories. I have a friend whose house went on the market, their mother's house. And it just so happened that another friend came across the house, was willing to pay the cost. It was over $1 million for the house, but the house only stayed on the market for a day.
Yeah.
A day. So even if you go through all these steps, what do you do first? Do you go through those steps first before you actually go out and start looking? Because you may find houses or properties that you like, but by the time you've gone through the process, it's gone.
Yes. No, that is the first step. You have to be ready, because you're right. If the house is priced right, desirable in the location that you want, you could best believe somebody else is looking at it also.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so as agents, we have access to every property that is on the retail market. And as a manager or agents who are with brokerages like myself, Long and Foster, we also stand up and say, I have this property coming. We have what they call coming soon. So you want to work with a terrific agent who will be able to potentially say, hey, something is coming up. Let's make our appointment so the day it becomes active, we'll be the first ones there to see it. It's not easy. Everybody wants to live in DC. Absolutely. DC, despite the challenges, is still one of the most desirable cities in America. I was out last night. I went to the African American Museum for an event, and we walked. And I never thought twice about walking. I walked 4 blocks to the museum. It was a beautiful night just to see everything that's afforded us. It's really exciting. So yes, many people still want to stay here and move here.
One of the last things I want to ask you, Carla, just several years ago, the Washington Informer started a series of articles focused under a theme. It was Keeping Homes Black Owned. Mm-hmm. And we were really focused on gentrification, but we recognized that gentrification is not the sole reason why Black people lose their homes. But if you were to, you're in Georgetown, you're working for Long and Foster, you're kind of in this position, but what is your philosophy about Black home ownership and what we need to be doing to maintain homes in DC for as long as we can? How do we do that?
Again, not easy. Let's be honest. If you are fortunate enough to have a parent or a grandparent that owns a home in DC, you definitely want to keep that home. You're passing on intergenerational wealth, because a grandparent probably paid next to nothing for that home back in the 50s, maybe when they bought it, or even your parents in the 80s when they bought it. So now the home has accrued equity. This money you could use and borrow against it for whatever you need to pay off bills, to put a child through college, or to pass on to the next generation. Mm-hmm. This is how others build wealth. And home ownership is the number one best way to build wealth in America, without question. But I don't have to tell you, a lot of people are interested in selling these homes because they don't want to maintain them. They're old, they're not sexy. A lot of young people, they want new homes. Well, guess what? That old home, if you haven't looked around lately, all you have to do is do some renovation inside, and it will be just as gorgeous as a brand new home somewhere out in the burbs. So yes, if you're fortunate enough to have access to a home, even if you share it with your sisters and brothers, hold on to it.
Well, on that note, with that wise advice, I'm going to say thank you very much for being with us and giving us our marching orders, because we want to continue to tell those stories and to work with folks like yourself who really are trying to get people in the homes and keeping them in their homes. So thanks for all the great information you're sharing with us today, and happy Black History Month.
Same to you, Denise, and thank you, and continue your success. Absolutely.
Thank you. Look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So speaking of, legacy and opportunities, I am so excited now to bring on a trailblazer in journalism, but photojournalism. And that is Leigh Mosley, who's made history as the first African-American female hired by the Washington Post. That's a good accolade, Leigh. But I think, it's the people that you've shot, who you focused your lenses on. That's what makes you so significant in my eyes. So welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So tell us about your journey as a photographer as we look through this, collage of your work over the last, how many years? It's been
50. Last 50 years.
Whoa, this is our number today, the last 50 years. Yeah, tell us about your journey.
Well, I got started, gee whiz, in about 1966. I started working with the Howard University's Hilltop, taking photographs for them, and also their yearbook with a guy named Brad Bertain, who later became an engineer and a photographer for ABC News, and a photography person, actually. And then, let me see, what happened? Eventually, I just kept working, and I got a job working at the Washington Daily News, which is now defunct.
Yes, and, I remember. I have a copy.
I'm dating myself here, but that's okay. I'll be 80 soon.
Oh, congratulations! That's amazing.
A long time. Yeah. 57 years I've been doing this, and then what happened after that? It's I actually have to look at my resume to see the chronology, but basically, I started working at Federal City College, which is UDC. I started working for them doing what do you call that kind of work, where you put out news information about the college and what's going on.
Oh,
and
communication, PR,
Yeah,
or whatever.
public relations. And then I started working with Dr. Andrews Taylor, doing a newsletter and working and teaching at Lawton Reformatory. And it just went on and on from there. And then eventually I went back to school at UDC, which was Federal City College then. I was working on a degree in psychology. And someone said, oh, you should apply for this internship at the Washington Post. So I did. It was a summer internship program. They had about 100 people applying. And then I got my notice in June that I had won that. And I started working for them for the summer. And it was interesting. It was very, very interesting.
How did you get into photography in the first place? I mean, who inspired you to do?
I was a singer, believe it or not, with this group called the New World Singers. And we used to sing with Roberta Flack. And I sung with Donny Hathaway at Howard at some point. I can't even remember now. It's been so long. And so what happened was the person that photographed our group took me back into the doc room. And when I saw those pictures come up in that tray, it was like magic. And I said, I got to do this. So I stopped singing. I brought a camera. I set up a doc room in my kitchen, which was crazy because the kitchen was crazy hot. So by the time the chemicals heated up, they made everything overdeveloped. And it was a real mess. But I kept going. I just kept going. And I borrowed some books from the library to tell me what to do step by step. And I did the best I could. And I just kept going with that.
What is it, though, about photography that, like touches your spirit, that keeps you going?
People. I am a big people person. I love community. I love individuals. I think that everybody has a story. And I think that story comes out not only through what people do, which is the action that you capture as a photojournalist, but just the way that they look. Like, for example, if I photographed you right now, I'd make you take off your glasses. We'd have a chat.
Would you leave my pencil sharpener in the back?
No, we take that out. I might. If it was an environmental portrait, yes, we would have some things around you to show, to connect. I would take out that handle though behind your head. I wouldn't leave that in. I like your Black Lives History Matter. I would keep that because I've got one in my window. So I would just bring in what I can to show the essence of that person or the essence of what's going on in that situation. And I have a good eye. I was trained by some excellent professors at Howard. Lois Jones was one of them. So I have a background in composition and in lighting and texture and all those things that are requisite for making a good photograph and one image.
How has artists, this is Black Arts, or celebrating Blacks in the Arts for Black History Month. And there's some people like my daddy who used to say artists are poor. He didn't want me to marry artists because, they don't make no money. But, but who was making money anyway? But has this craft supported you over the years? Have you been able to do this?
No, but that's because that's not because of the craft. It's because of me, and because I have focused mostly on community organizations and people who don't have a lot of money. So I don't make a lot. I made that was a conscious choice of mine, and it's been mine. And it's been fine because I decided to teach, and so I was a teacher for the whole 50 years. And I did my craft, and I would take, like, for example, I worked for Essence Magazine. I would take my students to work with me so they could see, what I actually did and what they would be doing if they became photographers working for magazines and newspapers.
Wow. So, as the trade has changed, or as photography has changed over the years, because you talked about, a dark room and chemicals and probably, film and the cost of buying film and processing it. And then all of a sudden, now there's, this thing.
That's right.
I mean, how has technology impacted the work that you do?
Well, quite a bit, because I gave my darkroom, because I used to work for Duke Ellington School of the Arts as a teacher for years. So I gave my darkroom to them, and I kept 4 film cameras. I have a couple of Hasselblads, a Leica, and one Nikon. That are film cameras. but I had to buy all new cameras for still photography. I have quite a few Nikons actually. And then I had to buy a computer. Then I had to buy, those are the big things. They were very, very expensive. I have to have like 5 cameras that cost $3,200 each when I bought them. And then I know. And so it's not bad after you get set up, but the initial investment was, oh gosh, it was harsh, economically speaking. So I was telling someone before the program started that it's been a trip. It's been mostly a good trip, but and I have no regrets. I'm a socialist at heart. And I believe in community. I live in a co-op, a limited equity co-op, and that enabled me to retire when I did, because I was 70 when I retired from working every day. Wow. And so I've always been busy, always working, always trying to help people and to improve the quality of life for myself and the other people that I come in contact with.
So the photos that people that you've photographed, are there any favorites?
Yes. I love Muhammad Ali. I was a fan of his anyway because of his politics. You know, he was the handsomest man I've ever seen in my life, up close and in person. And he was vocal. I mean, you know, as we all know, we know who he is. And I really love taking pictures of him in that situation. I like taking pictures of Whoopi Goldberg at one of the gay marches in DC. I can't remember which years that was. I liked photographing, what's her name? I forget. Everybody knows. Oprah Winfrey at the opening of The Color Purple, 86. I remember that. I was impressed. I was impressed with the film. And
how did you get access? Because one of the things about Black photographers, a lot of times we don't get access to people and places and things as easily as some of those. Well, I mean, of course, Washington Post, as you know, as your employer, certainly did help, but you know, they could have easily sent somebody else. Or were you the Black photographer that covered the Black people?
I guess so. I didn't look at it that way because I sure did cover a whole gang of white people, as you can see up there in those photographs that they're supposed to be in the background. Yeah. I can't see them, but Lawrence Welk is certainly white, and a lot of the other people that I photographed were white. But I did have one situation that stands out so clearly. They sent me on this assignment in Northeast Washington, and there was this big shootout. And I was so scared. I didn't want to go. So I went down the street and hid behind some cars while the shooting was going on. And I just, you know, I said, why did they send me on this assignment? But everybody assured me that it was just, you know, the luck of the draw. I said,
yeah. So, I mean, we've had a chance to see some of your work here. And those of us who've, you know, subscribed or read the newspapers where your work is shown, have had a chance. But where do you exhibit now, or where can we see some of your work?
You know, that is a sad story right there. I've been a photographer for 57 years and I've never had a show.
Wow.
So I'm planning one. I'm working on a documentary right now, and as soon as I finish this, which should be in the fall, I'm going to start putting together my show, because I'd like to have a show when I'm 80, because who knows how long I might be around.
Well, I mean, that's not the topic of this show, but I think it's one to talk about, Leigh, and that is, you know, we work with a lot of photographers over the years, and I don't know if you remember a man named Samuel Courtney, who used to shoot for us, and when he died, you know, all of his photographs and negatives and what have you, you know, were put into a trash bag, and nobody knows where they are.
I know, but I heard about that. That's true. But Martin Luther King Library is talking to me now about being a repository for my work. So I'm
wonderful. Okay. All right.
I should
do that.
My work is like, no, that's not going to happen. But I do want to have a show, though. In fact, I want to have a series of shows because I've covered so much. One reason I haven't, it's just daunting. It's just so much that you can do in 50 plus years and I have, my whole hallway is filled with file cabinets full of stuff. It's like, oh God. Yeah. So, and then I have to digitize the stuff too. So.
Oh yeah. It sounds like an intern job.
Well, yeah, except that I have to tell them what to digitize if I was doing that. So I'm digitizing my own work. I bought a couple of cameras to do that. Yeah, I'm working on that too.
Good.
I'm busy.
I hear, and age is not stopping you. So that's a wonderful thing.
No,
You know,
not
is
at
there
all.
anything that you have on besides that work? Because that's work ahead of you. But as far as photography is concerned, is there something that you haven't done yet that you still want to do as a photographer? Someone you'd like to photograph or?
You. You've never been to my studio.
Well, make that happen. I need a great
I'll
photo
try.
anyway.
I know you're busy. I'll try to get you over here.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan. Leigh, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing, your great photographs. I'm glad we got a chance to see some and to hear your amazing story. We just, we have so many jewels in our community that we don't get a chance to see. And that's my mom who said, who's saying congratulations to you. You're a beautiful and wonderful photographer. And also as an octogenarian, she wrote, keep up the good work. Yes.
I see
Yes.
that.
Yes.
That is so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back in touch soon. All righty.
All right.
Take care. Well, that was great. That was a great conversation. And now before our time runs out, because we definitely want to talk to Monique Smith, who's the longest living Jane Doe. Wow, Monique, welcome to Let's Talk. How are you?
I am phenomenally well. I am blessed. And thank you so much, Lady Denise, for having me, especially during Black History Month, when here it is, I didn't even have a history or any legacy. And the number 50 will be mentioned for the third time because I've been missing for over 50 years.
Wow. What can you tell us about that experience and being, deemed the longest living Jane Doe? What can you share with us about that?
Yeah, I was hidden for a very, very long time. And unbeknownst to me, the identity that I lived under was not mine. And I was abused severely, mentally, physically, emotionally. And by the grace of God, I just kept saying, and he kept reminding me that I'm meant for so much more. I just didn't know what it meant, that I was so much more than the abuse and the neglect and the hardship, because I saw beautiful images all around me. I had classmates, I had neighbors, I had other, educators that poured into me, but they didn't know the horrific things that I was enduring at home. And I'm talking physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse for over 18 years. And then I graduate thinking that I'm doing so well, I'm an adult, I have my diploma, and I'm ready to pursue my dreams. And again, I am basically living in captivity over the age of 18. And I decide to, run away from the environment, and it gets worse. It gets really, really worse. And that's where the human trafficking took place. Because I went to Florida thinking I was going to start over from Maryland. I'm an adult now, and just getting off the bus, at the station, I was met with a pimp, and then the life took a toll all over again. And I kept saying, God, I know that I'm meant for so much more. And it was just that inner spirit that kept me going. Unbeknownst to me, I come back to Maryland, and I'm thinking to myself, what can I do? Like I kept, calling the family. I need my birth certificate. I gotta, I'm trying to acquire my driver's license. I'm trying to get a formal education. I'm trying to do something. And it was always met with this abusive tone and reaction. And I'm like, I'm the assumed age of 28. Why am I asking for my birth certificate? And it was just, again, out of respect. So I started writing all the municipals, the Board of Education, the Department of Social Services, filling all these forms across anywhere. And the next thing I know, as the documentation has presented itself, one said I was born in 1966, 67, 68. Another one said that I was African American. Another one said I was Hispanic. My name went from Monique to Monica, went to Monica. It was even the woman who raised me. Identity shifted. And right then and there, it took all of my strength to take my mindset and keep hold of who I was in that moment for my children. And by that time, I was the senior assistant manager at United Healthcare. I was a homeowner. You didn't have to have a birth certificate to buy a home. And that was how I was able to survive. I was doing things that didn't require me to have identity, but unbeknownst to me. So when I did discover, I actually went to the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, and I knocked on the door. Well, it was via phone call, and I go, I'm a missing child. And they go, what are you talking about? I said, there's a family somewhere in this country looking for a baby, and I don't know where from. And they go, ma'am, you don't even sound right. Then I started showing up at missing person centers just to learn a little bit more, because I had no idea who I was, what name am I looking, what year, what state. And they're looking at me and they're looking at the poster. They go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Your child looks just like you. And I'm like, no, that's me. I'm the missing person. Right?
Yeah.
This is what dubbed me as the longest living Jane Doe, is when I started working with the Salvation Army. And they've been around since the early 1800s.
Right.
And they did all that they could do. And it was still no way for me to find my lineage whatsoever. So the quest got stronger. But in that process, I started providing all the information I had to people who was assisting to create change. I could not have been, missing. So I would always tell people, all missing children aren't dead. You forget about the missing milk carton kids. If you stop looking and you stop searching, never give up until the body bag comes back. And then that's when I started working with the police department, the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, NAMUS organization, and even with DNA. No one was in my DNA registry. So I went 23andMe, I went to DNA, and I'm probably one of the only alive people in a registry called NAMUS. And it's a statewide organization. It's funded by each state. And they take people that they find from homeless, they're under park benches and abandoned homes, and they take a picture of the body and a DNA sample, and then they honor the body by disposing of it, but they keep you in their database. I'm in the database with deceased people trying to find a link. So I wrote the book, I Am the Ancestor. Before I died, I must share my story, because I had 4 minor children, and I refused to allow the world to allow those people to take my kids the way that they had taken me. And it wasn't going to happen. Well, I went on a state search. And the next thing you know, I was trying to call Oprah, Tyler Perry, Sally Jesse Raphael, Jenny Jones, Ricky Lake, Maury Porter. I do them all.
I got a story to tell. Let me tell my story. Right.
And let me tell you, and no one responded. They're not saying that, it was maybe the story was crazy. I'm telling them I'm a missing child. Maybe they thought it was some kind of fluke that went on, just so I could get my face on television and hope that someone would recognize me.
Have you run across, really quick, Monique, have you run across any others that, I know you said you're only one in a couple of databases, but you haven't run across any other people who are similarly situated, or you think
if we all remember Carnalina White, she was the baby that was snatched from the hospital in New York. And then there was Kamira Mosby, who was the 16-year-old girl in New Jersey who had at 16 kept asking her mom for the birth certificate. She herself went to law enforcement, and it discovered that this woman who raised her also stole her out of from her mom from the hospital. So those were the 2, but I was already campaigning about my story. So every time days would populate, the media would call me here in Maryland, and it would go, hey, we there's another child that was missing. Well, the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children didn't come out until 1984.
Right.
This happened to me in 1968, and I have not gone back. So over that course of time, I've been featured on HBO, and it's all about elevating humanity, bringing a level of hope for people to never give up on their dreams. And me, I had absolutely nothing to gravitate. There was no, something I could give to my children, nothing to hand down to them, no heritage. I couldn't say that your great-great-great-grandmother worked in the White House, or that you have land in Texas, or maybe you got good hair because you got Cherokee Indian in you. Well, forget the hair, but unfortunately, I had nothing to give my kids but this uniquely gifted assignment, this challenge. Just to remind the world that all missing children aren't dead. And since that time, I have had the very first missing persons event in the state of Maryland in 2018 and again in 2020. I had a tri-state where I partnered with local officials from DC and Virginia and Maryland, and we pulled people together with the NamUs organization, the police department, the FBI. They all came for questions and answers and how we can prevent this.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful. And Governor Moore from the state of Maryland, I actually have the ink pen for Safe Harbor bill that he had signed in the act, whereas kids who abducted and or traffic commit crimes, we want to make sure that those charges are removed from them so they can transform and then live a life of normalcy. So I've done a lot of work while looking for myself to protect
others. Are you still on a mission to try to find who your parents are, or have you given that up?
No, I would never give up. So much so that I did my own documentary. So once Oprah didn't call and Tyler Perry didn't call, I hired a film crew. I premiered in 2019 at the Senator Theater, and I went on tour looking for my family. And my detective here in Maryland called me one day, and they said they found a lady in New York looking for a death certificate of her baby sister. So no one was even looking for me anymore. They just assumed that I was dead. It was so ironic that I constantly said that all missing children aren't dead. And unfortunately, they weren't looking for me, but it wound up. And it took us 2 years. COVID was going on. We couldn't get the DNA test done from the University of North Texas until 2020, until 2021.
Right.
When they confirmed that she was my bio sister. Yeah.
She was your sister.
Yep. She was
your
my
sister. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's a link. Right.
So with the book, I Am the Ancestor Before I Die, I'm going to share my story. We have raised over $90,000, where 100% of the proceeds goes towards all of the campaigns that we do. When it comes to bringing awareness, I speak at lectures at high schools and colleges, the state police. I've done some at the Armory for the military. So a lot of work goes into me trying to.
And one of the things that this community has not given up on, although we don't hear as much about it, is Relisha Rudd. And I mean, she I guess would be about maybe 13 or 14 by now.
I think she's 16. I think she's actually 16 this year. And on April 1st, we're coming up. I participate in her event every single year. The flyer that I said that I did the tri-state for, Relisha was a part of that. We know that in the African-American community, there's a huge disparity. We have well over 500,000 children that are reported across this country missing every single year. With human trafficking, is a $150 billion industry. But then there's 40% of that number of the 500,000 that are African American that are not getting the same resources. We're not getting the Godiva dogs. We're not getting the helicopters. We're not getting the search parties. It may be growing because we've been more verbal and yelling about it.
Right.
And getting new campaigns going, but the disparity is still at a horrible rate. So thank you for this platform, because us sharing this information about the help and the resources that we need is what will get us there.
Well, I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us and to share your story, and to share the fact that people can learn more about it by reading your book. And thank you for doing a documentary, your own. You know what I mean? We got to take things into our own hands sometimes to get our stories out.
You cannot wait. You cannot wait. And I refuse. I could not wait. Answers can only be acquired when asked or when worked for. Right, and that's how it actually happened.
Right. Well, Monique, continue to bless you. This is a story that I know does not have an ending yet. We're going to find out more as time goes on, and good luck with your 4 kids. I know that they may not know the past, but they know the present, and they hopefully it's things are working out well for all of you.
God has been good. Yes, God has definitely been good to me and my family. I couldn't, without he, there's no me. So I was able to accomplish so much for, just like I said, just not my family. There are so many other missing children and their family and the agencies that we all pull together to work together.
Right. Well, we need to make sure we continue to advocate for that as well. So thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Well, that concludes our broadcast for today. We would like to extend our gratitude to Mamo Assefa, Monique Smith, Leigh Mosley and Carla Labat for joining us and sharing their invaluable perspectives. We extend thanks to all of our viewers for joining us and for your ongoing support. Remember, change begins with awareness and dialogue. So let's continue to spark conversations, break barriers, and build a more inclusive future. Tune in next week for more inspiring discussions and impactful stories. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, signing off.